You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to the writingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
And welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Everybody, and welcome to this week's Writing Community Chat Show. It's amazing to be back as always, and we've got another fantastic guest lined up for you today. And it's great to be back sat here with Chris Hooley sat next to me again. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited to talk about a few bits on Friday. So I started already. And I did that one intentionally. But I wonder how many bits I will say during the course of this discussion.
Our guest is currently laughing a lot at the fact you said bits, and apparently that's not a common phrase in her place of the world.
No, I mean, my favourite use of the term bits is when you say like jiggly bits or wobbly bits, or if you're trying some clothes on and you're like, oh, this doesn't quite, the sausage sack thing's not going on the meat.
Excuse me, Chris?
Yeah, do you know when you have those bits of shows sometimes?
Yeah, I've got plenty of jiggly bits going on right now.
That stick out, wibbly bits and wobbly bits. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. How apart from your jiggly bits and your sausage pack, Chris, how's your week? How's your week been? My voice keeps getting high because you're making me all embarrassed here.
I've tickled your funny bit, I suppose. But yeah, no, it's been an interesting week. Trying to do bits of writing, bits of reading, things like that. Plenty of jiggly bits, wobbly bits, giggly bits, all the bits.
So hello to you all in the chat. Ross is in the house. Hello to you, Ross. It's great to see you here. Brandon, as always, super early today. I think he set a record, so thank you for that. Linda as well, and I know Halo is popped in with her. I'm so red. Yeah, I've got a little flush here. It's all the jiggly bits. Yeah, so we've got a great show coming up for you today, and someone who hopefully will give us some fantastic insight into the world of marketing, which we know is a battle in itself. Once we get past the whole world of self-publishing or any sort of publishing, we realize we've still got a lot of work to do, because if we're not publishing our marketing our books, then in all reality, why do we write it in the first place? And I know, Chris, we've discussed this plenty of times. So I'm excited to get into all this and this person's career. So it's going to be a good chat. But you guys in the chat, let us know how your jiggly bits are, but also how your writing's been this week. How have you been? I know in America you guys were talking about a 3-day weekend. What are your plans? Let us know. We'd be interested to hear about that. And we had a 3-day weekend just gone. The weather wasn't great, but we have got the sun coming back this week, so perhaps we shall have an interesting week this week, Chris.
And because our guest is from across the pond, and bits has come about in this show because it was a funny word that she likes to listen to, or not listen to, like she doesn't just listen to random bits tapes. But yeah, she said it was a funny word. So are there any words that you find that are incredibly funny as American audiences, because we've got quite a few of them, when said by British people? Do you class yourself as British, Agate? Or are you
of course I do, yeah.
Oh, right, okay, that's fine.
As ex-forces, that's is kind of my thing, and probably a lot of forces things to be British because of the British forces and so forth. So yeah, I think it's a relevant question. What about yourself?
What, in terms of words?
Are you British or are you English? How do you go?
Oh yeah, I'd probably say, Halo's got a good one. I don't know how to fit that word in.
Just say it, Chris. We don't mind. I'll put it on
willy-nilly. Sometimes we are a bit willy-nilly with the bits that we do on the show. So there you
Quite
go.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was my name, which is another bit of me that doesn't necessarily work as I would want it to.
Linda said one.
Sounds wrong.
Yeah, Linda said one that is spelt wrong. And I think that's more of an American way to say it, which is bollocks.
Yeah, I think she means something else there.
Yes, I do too. Right, this has gone way off topic. I think we should introduce our guest because, we're wasting our guest time, although we do love our little random chats. Also, before we do move on, we were talking about the Halloween party, one of our after shows, and I apologize, there hasn't been an after show for quite some time. We've been very busy. But what do you want to see from a Halloween party on the show again? It's been quite a while since we've got dressed up and enjoyed ourselves for a party with you guys. So let us know if you've got any ideas, if you want us to dress up as something particular. October is just around the corner in reality, and we want to make sure that show is all right for you guys. So please get in touch and let us know, and we will get that sorted. Brandon says do a theme party.
Yeah, I like the idea of that. I love Ross Young's suggestion. I think it'd be really funny if you dressed up as that.
Sorry, I've just seen that. That's not really appropriate. Right, I'm going to get the show on because otherwise we're going to get waylaid here. So everybody, please welcome our guest tonight. Tonight's guest is a seasoned nonfiction and children's book marketing specialist with a deep-rooted passion for crafting clear messaging and creating impactful content. Melanie has been empowering clients from around the world. What sets Melanie apart is her incredible blend of skills and experiences. She draws from a dynamic mix of entrepreneurial acumen, award-winning journalism, and PR expertise to guide her clients toward achieving brand recognition, boosting book sales, and ultimately becoming recognized as subject matter experts in their respective fields. That's all very interesting things to talk about, and I'm sure this career has come from somewhere, which we're definitely going to dig into. So, ladies and gentlemen, please say hello and welcome Melanie. Oh my goodness, Melanie! I got the first name wrong, Chris. Herschorn. Hello, Melanie.
Hi.
I got something wrong. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I wish I had a cocktail, but it's only noon here, so I have to pick up my kids later. It wouldn't be good.
I was going to say it is Friday, so you probably could have got away with it, but not if there's driving involved. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you're doing very well. Where in the world are you coming from, just so that the people are watching can figure that out?
Normally sunny Phoenix, Arizona, but right now it is overcast and gray, but it's still like 1,000,000 degrees.
So warm and gray, which is never the best thing.
Well, sometimes it's nice to have a break from the sun. We had, upwards of 116 degrees for a while, and that was pretty.
Wow.
I don't know what that is in Celsius. I haven't lived in Canada in 20 years, so.
Yeah, we definitely haven't had that. It's been quite wet. But apart from that, Melanie, we're going to talk about all those great things that I mentioned on the introduction, about your books and about your career, bringing yourself into the writing world. So what we do is we start with part one. I'll play a little video, and we're going to find out your road to writing. So we're going to ask you some questions about that. And if you've got stories along the way, we'd love to hear them. So let me play the first video, and we'll get straight into it. So, Melanie, the road to writing is something that every one of our guests goes through, and whether they're watching the show or listening back as a self-published author or a traditionally published author, everyone has a road to writing. And what we really like to do is to talk to you about that, because people learn quite a lot from that journey, whether they're picking up on bits about how you got into your writing or how you got published or any parts of that journey are really helpful to somebody. So how did you take that first step into the writing world, and what were the inspirations for you?
So I wanted to write a book when I was 9, and it was going to be kind of a play on a Judy Blume book, and I worked so hard on it, and I never did anything with it. And then when I was in graduate school for journalism, I was going to write a book, and it was going to be about my master's thesis, which was about online dating. But Tinder didn't exist yet. There were no apps for online dating at the time. So that book would have been so obsolete before I'd even written it. So then fast forward a number of years later, and I finally found my niche. My niche is book marketing. It's what I do. It's what I live. It's what I breathe. So I thought I should write a book about that. But in order to get my butt to sit down and type, because, there are a million different things you can do that have nothing to do with this book, and excuses you can tell yourself about why now is not really the time to be doing it. So about 2 years ago, that's how long it's taken me here. 2 years ago, I was at a conference in Miami, and I sat my butt down on a chair on the beach, and I typed until my computer battery died. And then I went, I have the start of a book. And I'm now in the final layout process of my book. This book, though, that you have, Chris, you have by your head, this one is a compilation book. And so this one was a really quick, I had the idea in March and then we published at the end of June. That was a quick one. But my personal book, and for when people are sitting down to write their personal stories, or a book that really has to do with their business, something that they can leverage, you're not going to find time. So you have to just sit down and do it. And the way I started was coming up with basically a plan for what should be included in this book. And each of those points became a chapter. And then I just sat down and wrote. And then I went back and injected stories, because stories are the only thing that are going to really make your book interesting and memorable. Stories are kind of the most interesting and memorable pieces of books. And I don't know about you guys, but I love reading nonfiction books, but if it's really dry, it's going to just be boring and I'm not going to be interested.
Yeah. I mean, nonfiction in itself is very different to fictionalized writing. And as you mentioned, it's really, you've got to relate to, say, if it's written about a character, to that character, or about the subject in itself. So when you were first writing the books that you weren't classed as your genre at the time, that weren't going anywhere, was there ever a fear that kind of the writing wasn't for you at that point? Or did you kind of feel like you were still finding your feet?
I've always loved to write. Always. I had a hard time learning to read. I don't know why, but I was in second grade before I really mastered reading. And then I always hated it because it was hard. And it took me a really long time to get through a book that my peers would be done with in 2 hours. So I always just shied away from reading entirely. But writing was always something that just came naturally to me. But again, it's like, well, what do you write about? And I personally believe that school beats the creativity out of children with a big mallet. So when I became an adult and I was like, wait, I forget how to be creative. It took me like years to remember how to come up with things in a way that wasn't super formulaic.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So Melanie, it's really interesting that you say that it started really with a moment of inspiration, a little flash of you going, do you know what, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start writing this book until my battery dies. So then how did you take that level of enthusiasm that you had in that moment and then make sure that you sustained it over a period of time so that you could actually get a finished product rather than something you were just really enthusiastic about?
Peer pressure. People would look at me and go, oh, you do book marketing? Where's your book? I'd be like, it's coming. And, I've been part of a number of anthology books over the past 2 years. So I kind of got my feet wet. But in terms of getting inspired and keeping up the inspiration, I mean, part of that was pressure from my kids too, because I said to them, they're 9 and almost 12 right now, and a daughter and a son. And I said, mommy's going to be a published author someday. And actually I said mummy because I grew up in Canada, but they say mommy. Anyway, so I said, I'm going to be a published author someday. And then my daughter's like, so when are you going to do it? When are you going to be a published author? Like, when is that happening? I was like,
it's one of those things where a lot of people will start writing and they almost are too afraid to actually take that step. they're doing the work and they're creating that product, but actually to become an actual author is something quite intimidating to quite a few people. Is that something you felt, or were you just, I know I'm going to get this out there, it's just a matter of time until it happens?
No, I was terrified. And I didn't know how I was going to publish the book. I didn't know that there was such so I'm taking you back before I started working in this space. I didn't know that self-publishing wasn't considered vanity publishing anymore. I remember my mom making some negative comment about my great uncle who had self-published a book, and it was a vanity publication. It was just for his family. And I thought, well, maybe that's going to be my only way that I can ever publish. And then everyone's going to look down on me. But thankfully, things have changed significantly. And you can self-publish, create your own imprint. And guess what? As long as you market your book the right way and let people know that it exists, it doesn't really matter how you do it. But that said, what was scary was I didn't know how you do it. And I met a woman who was a hybrid publisher. And I thought, okay, well, now I know somebody. And then I started doing more research. And that was when I got excited, because I realized that there's this whole big world of publishing that was clearly open to me as long as I had, a credit card.
Definitely.
Yeah,
it's
and
interesting.
children.
Sorry, guys, go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's amazing the motivation that children can give you. I remember the first time I went on a big weight loss journey. It was because I was sat with one of my kids, and they were sat on my knee and they were just watching the TV, and they looked up at me and they went, "One chin, two chin." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to the gym now." So kids can be a real motivator. But how do you find the time, Melanie, when you've got kids? To not only write a book, but give people advice on marketing a book as well?
Well, thankfully, my children are old enough that no longer are they walking up to me and poking my butt and saying, "Wow, your butt's so jiggly, mommy." But also, because that did happen. Also, they're in school from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 5 days a week, except for all the crazy. There are so many school holidays that it's like, do these kids actually go to school? I don't know. Like, there's like a half day here and then 17 half days there. Anyway, so when they're in school, that is when I work on my, business and helping my clients. And then over and above, I have found the only time that I can really write a book, spend time writing my book, is when I'm out of town. So any conference, airplanes are my favorite. Like, I sit and I can type for 5 hours. Or I also locked myself in a Starbucks once for 9 hours, and I didn't even go to the bathroom. And I was like, how did that go by so fast? So it's kind of tricking your brain into, like, I don't know, it's almost like sensory deprivation. If you don't have emails coming at you and you're not home and there aren't kids running around, that's how you do it. You get out of Dodge.
So I'm interested then, as someone,
it makes sense.
Yeah, as someone who was looking at writing their stories and dabbling in anthologies and these sorts of things. Why did you then decide to take on the journey of starting a business to do with marketing, and how did you start that to take it forward?
Okay, so my business came before my book.
Okay.
Before all the books. And I was just, I can tell you a little bit about how I got to where I am, if you'd like. I don't want to ask questions for you, but as a former journalist, it kind of happens a lot.
Please do.
Okay. So before I did this, I had an idea to design and manufacture breastfeeding clothing. And so I built a business, and I was an entrepreneur, and it was really exciting and all these things. And I sold my clothes on Nordstrom.com, which I'm sure you guys have heard of the store, even though it's hard for you to order where you are, and, Amazon and stuff. So around year 6, I hired somebody to help me with my marketing because she said my marketing wasn't good. I'm just going to say that I think I'd been doing a good job. But I have this problem where I let people tell me that they're experts and I believe them. So I'm
Okay.
working on that. I'm a work in progress. And so she, helped me grow my Instagram, and there were 5,000 new followers who were not interested in buying my clothes. And all the while she was actually pretty mean, and she would tell me, "How do you have a master's degree in journalism? You're really boring."
Wow.
And other things that I don't even want to go into because it's super embarrassing, even though it was a long time ago. But suffice it to say that after a year of that, I said, "I'm out. I couldn't even open my home office door." And that was one of the only rooms in my house. So I literally had to just like walk by it like this because I would just get this sinking feeling in my stomach. Anyway, so after that, I was kind of a shell of a person. Meanwhile, my husband's like, "You're paying her. Why are you letting her do that to you?" I said, "I'm afraid she's going to run a smear campaign online." Anyway, no one ran a smear campaign, and I have since learned that it's important to be assertive and boundaries. I digress. So, what am I going to do now? I have the urge to be an entrepreneur. Like, I can't, once you're an entrepreneur, you can't stop it. It's just like part of you. So, I decided that I would help people with their marketing and, really dial in with the 360-degree view that I have as a journalist, as a publicist, and as a business owner. And then I started niching down to help authors because it wasn't my idea. They started calling. And by the third one, I was like, "Okay, universe, I think you're trying to tell me to niche down." So it was scary as all hell. I put my stake in the ground, and I said, "I am only going to help nonfiction and children's book authors. They have to be on a mission, and then I'm going to help them." And then when I finally said that, I said, "Okay, now I know what my book is going to be about. It's going to be about my process and how I help authors so that people who can't afford maybe to join my program or to hire me one-on-one can at least get the basics." And when you help a wider audience, like, it feels really good. It feels really good.
No, definitely. It's a fascinating journey. I've never heard anyone go from babies, and well, I say babies because they're not the main customers, but they are, be it, at an advantage for using those products, I should imagine. Where are you going with this, Chris? Into the book world. What were the main questions that a lot of authors were asking you in the early days to say, "Look, can you help me with this?" Or what was it? What was going through their mind when they came to you?
Yeah, a lot of times it's, "I have a book. I don't know what to do now." And unfortunately, and I'm sure you guys know this, that there's a lot of misinformation in the publishing world. And a lot of publishers will just say, "Write a book, publish it, and then your dreams will come true." But unless your dreams are to have a bunch of books sitting in a box collecting dust, what you really want to do is market your book and let people know about it. And so that is the thing that I constantly say over and over again. And when people say, "Well, I'm not sure I have the time to market it," I say, "Okay, that's your choice, but I can promise that if you don't market it, nothing will happen with it."
Yeah. Did you feel a sense of, I've lost that as well, Chris. Oh my goodness.
Because she's got a master's in journalism. We're both petrified now.
No.
No. Give me a second because I had something good there. Oh, terrible. Anyway, so yeah, going from the marketing side of things and talking to people about actually giving them the advice on how to do that, were you getting success from the very first customer? And was that something that was snowballing, that you were obviously gaining the experience with each one as well, and that was giving you more in your arsenal to then develop the next author as well?
In a word, yes. And I think that that's a great question, because how do you just show up without having your own book published and tell people that you know how to market their books, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds kind of silly.
Mm.
But the truth is, I could market anything. But I really loved marketing books because they help change the world. It's important ideas out on paper. And your social media post is going to be here and gone, and that's it. Yes, it lives in infamy, especially if it's like a naked picture that a celebrity actually posted by accident, whatever. But it's not going to repeatedly be showing up in somebody's life. But a book is forever. You physically hold a book, or if you're like me, you have to read on a Kindle because your husband won't let you turn the light on at night. Whatever.
Like 3 times if you need help. No, I'm not joking.
So the book is forever.
Yeah, definitely. Melanie, I'm really interested because you said before about having the initial idea for your book, but then needing to find stories because stories are what makes a book. So what was that process like? How did you find the right stories to tell in your book?
Well, that is a great question, because how do you find stories, right? Sometimes you have to sit down and write them. Think about, like, well, what happened to me yesterday? Oh, that's funny. And client stories, clients' transformations. Those are always great to include in a nonfiction book because it's proof that you're an expert. And now it's in writing. And now you wrote the book on it because you're really an expert. So it works beautifully how that sort of dovetails. But other stories were personal stories, kind of some of the ones that I've shared with you today. And then that was those are kind of the only stories that I have shared other than, cautionary tales. But in general, how do you find stories? You just have to, keep a notebook with you and write it down. One thing that I do every so often is I just go live on my LinkedIn and my Facebook, and I do a coffee chat with my audience. And last week's story has garnered so much attention, and it didn't have anything to do with book marketing. It had to do with the fact that I should tell the story again. So my neighbor's dog got lost, or I guess she got left outside for about 6 hours, and it was 115 degrees outside. And I kept hearing this dog barking out my window, and I knew it was the neighbors, and she started sounding more and more distressed. So I texted him. I said, I think your dog might be outside. And he said, oh my God, I forgot her there. So I went and I saved her. But fast forward to a week later, he wanted to thank me. So he gave me a fish. But
Right. Okay.
but it was a fish, like a cooked fish with the head still on. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
Wow.
so that's a story. Like, that's bananas, right?
Well, have you ever dealt with stories that you were looking to market that you knew were perhaps a personal story or a nonfiction story that would perhaps not offend people but be very close to people's hearts in a way that may be triggering or traumatizing, or bringing that trauma back because of personal circumstances?
Absolutely. I have had 2 amazing, wonderful women that I've worked with, both of whom were severely touched by suicide.
Yeah.
And, and both of those books are about suicide. So it's like, how do you talk about suicide? How do you inform your audience in a way that isn't going to make them go running for the hills in a world where on Instagram, it's like, hey, babe, look at me. And then it's like death. So, it's a fine line, but certainly stories are so important in a case like that. And not only the stories of, what happened, but also stories of hope.
Yeah. So how would you look at marketing that differently to kind of the other content that might not have been as impactful in that sense to other stories?
So when I start working with a client, what we do is we look through their entire book, and they really pull out all the really unique differentiating pieces that make their story special. And then once you have those, your book is a treasure trove, right? So it's not about coming up with new things. It's there in black and white. It's just about how you put it out in the world. And that's what I love to help people do.
Brilliant.
So one of the things with non-fiction books, Melanie, is establishing credibility at the beginning, in order for your reader to go, do you know what, this is the book I'm going to read on this subject. What would your advice be to writers of non-fiction to help them establish credibility at the beginning of a book?
So let me ask you this. Is the book published?
Well, it was more of a generic question, but let's do it both ways. Let's say it's not published yet.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, let me give you the answer for if it is published. It's because it's a one-word answer. Reviews. Book reviews are a great way to really develop that credibility after it's published. Prior to publishing, it's about building your author platform, which is such a stupid buzzword. I hate buzzwords, but it's like, letting people know that wherever they go on social media or wherever they go online, it's uniformly the same. And it's like if they go to your Instagram, it's not a plate of spaghetti, and they go to your LinkedIn and you don't have a picture of yourself. You're just a gray silhouette. So it's really developing all that messaging and your platforms. That's how you build credibility. And then, you guys know this because you talk to a whole bunch of people all the time. You hear another buzzword, the know, like, trust factor. I'm sure you've heard that. You might have even said it. And like, what does that even mean, really, right? So people can know about you and they'll be like, oh yeah, I know Chris. He does that really cool show. And then they'll like you. They'll be like, CJ is so funny because he talked about jiggly bits and we and all those funny words that we don't say in America. And then it's trust, right? It's that trust piece. And I did a launch for a program that I have since revamped. And guess how many people signed up? Zero. No people sign up. And this is about a year ago. Nobody signed up. Why? They didn't trust me. They knew me. They liked me because I'm, I can be funny and fun. But they didn't trust that I could take them where they wanted to go. So if an author can develop trust with their audience, look, a book is not a high ticket item. Even if it's in, pounds and whatever, you guys have a whole different way of paying for things than we do over here, but it's not a high ticket item. So to get somebody to buy it, all you got to do is show them that you know what you're talking about and you're not blowing smoke. So it's not that hard. It just have to be consistent. And may I say that consistency is the granny panties of marketing because it's super unsexy, but you need it.
So when you look at, you mentioned author brand, and we kind of believe that is an essential part of marketing when you look at social media. Do you feel that is as valuable as the way you market, or do you think they can work independently, or one is stronger than the other?
Okay, I need you to clarify this question for me, please.
So in terms of marketing your book through, say, perhaps ads and sales in that sense, and then looking at your author brand, building the network of readers and other authors, do you think one is stronger than the other, or are they both kind of valuable in their own sense?
They are both extremely valuable, but there is an order in which you will want to do them. Because if you start marketing before you have all your author, foundation in place, people are not going to buy your book. They're going to be like, what is this? I don't care. Scroll, scroll, scroll. I don't care. I'm watching TV and I'm also, my kid is yelling at me, or I'm on the toilet and I'm scrolling. They're not going to stop and pay attention to you if you don't already have that messaging in place. So I highly recommend doing ads, especially Amazon ads, because those really work. But don't do them until you have everything else in place, like those book reviews, because I don't know about you guys, but I've never bought a book that had no reviews.
Yeah. I mean, I have simply because of the premise, and then I've been the first to review, which is quite nice. But yeah,
you're very
I mean,
special because most people won't do that.
Yeah, maybe I should reevaluate the things I'm buying. Damn it. But yeah, clearly marketing doesn't work with me, and that's probably why I'm terrible at it as well. What could you, without going into your book, obviously Mission Possible is there, and it's a great title, by the way. But what 3 tips would you give somebody? Obviously, read your book. That's the first thing. But if they just said, let's say we took the Starbucks incident before, and you're locked in Starbucks for 9 hours, and you get that weird moment when you're in the queue, and somebody goes, "Oh, what do you do?" And you go, "I'm in book marketing." And they go, "What can I do to sell my book?" What 3 things would you give them as you want it to be pleasant, but you also want them to leave, so you don't want to give them too much, but you want to give them just enough.
Wow. I'm definitely in this case. So I'm ready. Okay. So how much space do I have? Like, are they like close talker or?
Yeah, you can smell their breath.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go fast then. First thing I'm going to say is make sure that you have your messaging in place. And what the hell does that mean? It just means that what you're saying is resonating with your audience and they go, "Oh my God, I totally understand that. And I totally need that." So that's number 1. Number 2 is going to be that consistency piece. Be consistent with your marketing. Keep showing up. If you forget tomorrow, go back the next day. Don't let it go on for 6 months. And then the third thing is you as an author are your best marketer. So if you forget to share about your book, no one is going to do it for you. Even the big 5 publishers, they are not going to be doing your marketing for you. So whether you self-publish, use a hybrid publisher, or have a contract with an amazingly big New York publisher, they're still not going to do your marketing. So continue to talk about it and let people know and why it's helpful to them. Because like when we're scrolling, when we're anything in the world, the only thing that's in our minds is what's in it for me. So answer that question.
Wow.
Excellent.
That's a savagely brutal line. What's in it for me?
It's true. I mean, what's in it for me?
Definitely. Okay, we're going to play part 2 of the show, which is What's the Story? We're going to talk about Mission Possible. So hopefully you got a pitch for that book, and then we can dig a bit deeper into that and perhaps some more marketing tips, I guess. So we're going to play this video and we'll get straight into it. So Mission Possible, as Chris said, fantastic name. Link in the description for the people that want to pick this book up. It's up in the top corner there. You can see it. #1 Amazon bestseller. Melanie, can you let everyone know what Mission Possible is all about, please?
It is the manual for women entrepreneurs in the crucial first 5 years of business who want to learn from successful women entrepreneurs who've been there, done that, and made the mistakes so you don't have to.
Excellent. Interesting, the first 5 years. Why is after 5 years any different to the first 5?
Kind of liken it to the first 5 years of a child's life. Those are the most formative years. I think that when a business hits 5 years, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't have as much imposter syndrome as I did 2 years ago. I kind of feel like I'm in flow a bit. It's funny. I just had a meeting this morning with a woman. I didn't know why we were meeting on Zoom. And all she wanted to do was tell me how this book changed her life. And I wanted to cry, but I didn't because I'm not a big crier. But it was so special because she said, I'm in my 3rd year of business. She said, I'm just finally getting out of this messy middle and having all these different pieces in the chapters, because the way we did it is, it's different elements that every online business is going to need, from messaging to having a website to having, photography to having, knowing your numbers. All that stuff is in there. So the first 5 years are when you're really getting your stuff on track. And then the next 5 years will be when you scale your business to new heights and, all the fun stuff that goes with that.
Really interesting. Yeah. it's the 5-year business, and I understand what you're saying about having it as the infancy almost, where you're developing your skill set and pushing it in that sense. But how do you then scale it up, as you said? If someone wants to start a business, or just the self-publishing journey or publishing journey, and build their book brand, so they're writing series perhaps, or they're building books on books on books, how do they take it from the stage where they're creating a set of novels to making that a business in sense, rather than just someone who thinks they're just releasing books after books? Does that make sense?
Yes. So how do you create new revenue streams from your book? Because unless your name is J.K. Rowling, you're probably not going to get rich from your book sales, but maybe you will, and that'll be great. So how do you create new revenue streams from your book? Well, let's see. Some of my children's book authors, I'm in talks with film and TV producers, because how cool would that be if all of a sudden your character has a TV show on Amazon Prime or on Netflix?
Yeah.
That's one way. Sometimes it's about creating a course. Now, for a novel, I don't know. I mean, maybe there is some course that would work that you can do and you can sell that. So there are just so many opportunities to create these streams, like speaking, for example. Let's say you wrote a fiction book, but it's about a topic that is very important in the world. Maybe it has to do with children. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. And so maybe you want to go on the school circuit and talk at schools and teach children why bullying is bad, because it really is bad.
Yeah, definitely. If we go back to reviews, because obviously you said they're so significant when you first start out with that book launch, how does somebody navigate that in terms of, we've had loads of authors on the show, and one of the things that they say, sometimes reviews can be hard to get hold of. So how do you navigate that?
Okay, well, I'll reveal my secrets here. You have an email list and you start asking people for reviews, and you give them some sort of incentive for doing it. So with
what's in it for me?
Exactly. You are such a quick study. Oh my gosh. Cheers.
I was going to ask about emailing marketing, because it's something that was definitely used a lot more in previous years, and I'm not sure how many people uptake that now. But do you think that's a real key aspect of your marketing process?
Oh yeah, email has not stopped. We just keep reading things that say email is dead, but it's not dead. I mean, how many times do you unsubscribe from an email? Probably not as many as you're unsubscribing from the, on your phone where it says report junk. I hit report junk all the time, even by accident sometimes. But so yes, people are like, well, texting. I don't know. I'm a big fan of email marketing, and because you can see if they opened it and you can they clicked. You can't do that with social media. So I think that email is a great way to start reaching out to your people and say, look, it would be so helpful for us. And here we go again. It's the what's in it for me. Not only would you be helping further my mission, and then you want to share whatever your mission is, but also I have a free thing for you. I'll just send me a screenshot of your review.
Amazing. So, for example, if someone is in that situation where they're sending out their email list and they're populating it pretty well and it's growing, but people are not opening that as much as they'd like, what could be going wrong in that situation? How could they adapt to improve that?
Okay, so you know how we say don't judge a book by its cover? But we do it anyway.
Of course we do.
So it's probably one of two things. Either the from is not your name, and it's like something business, because nobody went to open that.
Yeah.
Or it's your subject line, which is not thinking, what's in it for me. So the subject line is newsletter for October. Yeah. Nobody's going to read that. So, but if you said, open this because you'll get something, everyone's going to open that, right? I mean, you got to be sparing with things like that, because eventually if you keep doing it over and over again, people are going to be like, unsubscribe. But anybody who does unsubscribe, they're not your right person. So don't feel too much shame about that. And I know that it can be, especially if you know them and they go unsubscribe and you're like, thanks, jerk, but it's okay.
Definitely. No, that's great advice. I think that's a really interesting thing that a lot of people might overlook. Literally, the subject heading, and of course, the name of what's coming across is a massive, will have a massive effect on whether I open it. And I do that myself. I get so many emails that I'll swipe through, and that's exactly what I look at when I'm looking for the email. So yeah, 100% right, and I think that's going to help a lot of people. In a couple of minutes, Chris, we'll jump on. What are you laughing at?
Yeah, I'm wondering too.
I just imagined the next chat show email
Yeah,
with the tagline of you saying pics of my jiggly bits.
That would probably get more opens, Chris. I'm pretty sure.
Or it would go right to spam and no one would see it. So
yeah, in a couple of minutes, guys, we're going to get questions from you for our guest tonight. So if you have them, please start populating those in the message of the chat and send those into us, and we'll get onto our staple questions. But before we wrap this up, Chris, any more questions on, I guess, marketing and specifically Mission Impossible?
Yeah, I had a question, and I wasn't sure whether I should ask it, to be honest, but I'm going to ask it.
Then you have to.
Yeah, I wondered why specifically women in business. Because obviously I could read the book and pick up a lot of good tips from it as well. But why did you decide your target audience was going to be women for this book?
So that is a beautiful question. Now, let me just say that I work with men and women in my regular life with book marketing, and it is not to exclude people, but it was to empower women. Because since the pandemic that nobody likes to talk about anymore because it's over, there are a lot of people home and a lot of women starting businesses. And there are a lot of gurus online who write things on Facebook like, I made $14,000 in 1 minute. Drop an emoji below and get my exact blueprint to do it too. Right. So we all fall prey to those things because it's like, gosh, that's so good. I just got an email about an hour ago and it said 400 social media captions that are guaranteed to go viral for only $97. And I thought about it and I went, wait a minute. No, what am I doing? But it's like, so that this book is I don't know what it is in the UK, but it's $19.99. And it is to help women without all that flash and nonsense, because templates are not the be all and end all. Customization is, right? So this book helps you take information and make it your own.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it.
In regards to the email, what you said, Chris, Brandon said he'd open that. Linda said that email would be terrifying and alluring as well. Subject, title, Free My Bits.
Yeah.
So there you go. Bit of love for that, I guess. Okay, we're going to put part 3 of the show on. We've got just over 10 minutes left. We're going to ask the staple questions and get your questions for our guests. So please get those in. And this is part 3, community questions. So, Chris, it's not often we have non-fiction authors on the show, so some of these questions might be interesting, or the answers to them. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I suppose I could tweak it a little bit. So,
okay,
one of our staple questions is, if you could take any character from fiction and make that character your own, who would you choose and why? So I'm going to change it to, if you could take anyone's life and write it as though you'd lived it, who would you choose and why?
Oh gosh.
That's interesting.
So anyone's life, I would get to write that story. I mean,
yeah, as if it was your own, as if you'd lived it.
As if I'd lived it. It would have to be something from someone from history. Maybe it would be like Plato or Aristotle. I think Aristotle, because he was all about the golden rule, right? And then I'd get to like hang out with him and learn all about what it was really like in the ancient world as opposed to what we think it was like. So I would kind of love that.
That would be very interesting, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one of them died from getting a turtle dropped on their head?
Don't know.
Somebody in the audience needs to Google that for me, because I'm pretty sure one of the great thinkers in history, died because a bird or whatever dropped a turtle on his head.
That can't be true.
I'm pretty sure I've read that.
A bird dropped a turtle.
Yeah.
I didn't learn about that, and I have a.
Oh, do you know what I did learn about? And this is a complete sidestep, but let me just do this because it's really interesting. So, how many days are there in a week?
7.
Yeah. So, it's not a trick question. 7.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, how many days are there? How many days are there in a month?
Well, that depends.
Yeah. Anywhere between
on average, what would you
28
say?
to 31.
Oh, right, let's step back then. 7 days in a week. How many weeks in a month?
4-ish.
Generally 4.
4-ish. Yeah. So how many days are there in the whole year?
364 and a quarter.
Yeah. Well, it's 365. Yeah. So 365 divided by 12 works out at 30. Okay. Exactly. Okay. However, we know some months have 28 and some have 31 and things like that. But if you did 28 days, which is an average, can we all agree that's an average month? Yeah. Can we times that by 12? So if we're going off the principle of 7 days in a week, 4 weeks in a month, then we got 336 days. Okay. So obviously we're missing how many days there? If we've got 336 days.
29.
Yeah. So we're actually missing a whole month's worth of days.
Yeah, but some months are 31 days.
Technically, they should be
muzzle dove on figuring that out. Okay.
No, they shouldn't. Technically, if we're going off, how many days are in a week, which we know is 7.
Yeah.
How many weeks are in a month, which we generally would say is 4. Then there is 13 months in a calendar year.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it really irritated me when I found that out, because I was like, I'm sure we're all being underpaid somewhere.
Oh my goodness, what a question. Going back a little bit, Halo says tortoise death.
Yes. See, I knew I was right.
What's the name of that one?
I've never seen that. Is it Aeschylus? Aeschylus?
Yeah.
I'm
glad you said it, because I would have got that wrong.
I don't know that it's right.
And neither is one of them.
And Brandon says, just because you say technically, Hooli, doesn't mean you're right.
No,
yes.
but Brandon, you would say the same as what Melanie and Chris said. There,
right.
7 days
Melanie,
a week, 4 weeks.
Let's get back to it.
The adults are going to book talking.
Yes, Chris. Yes. If we could take the ending of any story, whether it's a TV show, a film, or a book, and change the ending, what ending are you going to change?
The Notebook.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
That movie and book. I didn't read the book. I should have read the book, but I definitely saw the movie.
That's where you went wrong.
I don't want to ruin the ending, but
it's been out a long time. Don't worry.
Everybody dies.
That's a great ending.
How it I don't know. I just feel like it's too sad. I don't like sad things.
Yeah,
that's what happens in real life, though.
I know, but if I'm taken away out of my mind, out of my body, and really focusing on something, I want it to be happy.
I'm pretty sure the book's different. I don't think I've ever seen the film, but I've read the book.
Okay.
And
do they not die in the book?
They don't die in the book?
Somebody dies in the book, but I'm pretty sure Who both don't die.
I wonder how the fans of the book reacted to that then, if it's different to the TV series or film. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean the main person dying, obviously without spoilers here, but it's been out a while. So she dies.
Right.
But in the book, I don't think he dies.
Wow.
And she remembers him before she dies. But I could be wrong because it was a long time since I read that.
Well, my wish came true. That means that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm pretty sure there's some sort of nice scene where he goes and visits something. Well, it would be a grave, but maybe I'm just rewriting the Notebook off my own memory.
I think we should start titling this show based on the things that get said. So far, it's been Jiggly Bits, Tortoise Death, and something else. That would make a much better title, I think.
And there are fewer days in a year than you think.
Yes, there are actually 13 months.
Which means we should be like years older than we think we are.
But do you know what's even stranger about it? And again, this is going down a rabbit hole. But if we had 28 days in every month and we had 13 months, then the first of every day would be of every month would be on a Sunday. So we'd all have the day off. Well, most of the people would have the day off on the very first of the month. How nice would that be?
Would it though?
Would it matter?
No, it wouldn't.
Yeah, I think it would. I think it'd be good.
Leave the days alone, man. Right. Okay. Crack on with these little questions. So we got a couple from the audience, and please send more in if you got them.
Yeah. So one of our other staple questions is, again, a little bit morbid, but you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your writing career, and I'm going to say your business career as well, because obviously it's very relevant. What would you be happy with? What is success to you?
Knowing that I made people feel like their voice mattered. That's success to me, whether it's my own family or the authors that I help. Knowing that I help them see that they matter and that what their thoughts, their feelings, their mission matters.
Nice. I like that.
It's true.
Yeah. No, it's a great goal to have. And that's what really gives value, is the satisfaction and almost the recognition for yourself and the work you put in to help that person as well. So it's almost a double prize that they get what they want, you get what you want, and the work together shows, you've created something magical between you. And I think that's a really good goal to have. That's fantastic. Okay, questions from the audience. Halo's got one. How much money do you suggest investing in ads per month? Which is a great question, because no one really understands that unless you're a marketing expert.
Well, I'm going to ask you the question right back at you, because do you have your marketing foundation in place? And how much money do you have to invest per month?
Okay.
Then look at how much money you have and test it, right? Because ads are all about testing. Actually, marketing is all about testing. So be sure that you are going to get a return on your investment and you're not just throwing money out the window every single month. But start with your budget, something that feels good for you. Maybe it's $5 a day. Maybe it's $1 a day.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Halo. Paul, hello. Nice to see you on the show, Paul. He said, I asked this at Harrogate this year. In a world of amazing stories, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, do you think there will ever come a time when authors run out of stories to tell?
Not a chance.
No. I love your picture as well, Paul, with Ian Child by there, which I don't know if that was
Ian Child?
Yeah, Lee Child, sorry. Ian Child.
I was going to say, is that?
Yeah, Lee Child. He was there at Harrogate this year, and Paul, I've met him every time. We interviewed him, if you remember, Chris, a couple of years ago, Paul.
I thought you meant Ian Child. I was like, no, I don't remember.
No, not Ian Child.
Ian Child.
So, yeah, I don't think stories to tell will ever run out, because let's be honest, whether it's music or film or books or literature, it's all been done before already. And what we're doing is repeating history, but in our own story, which is also different to what's happened before. So in reality, things are repeating over and over and over, but with our own version and our own style and sense, because what we experienced doing exactly the same thing as someone else from 100 years ago will be our experience and a different outview or an output on that story. So I don't think it will ever be the same in reality.
No, I mean, as long as people are giving fish as thank you gifts, we're never going to run out of stories.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
we could have
when you come back to it,
13 months now, right, Chris?
we could, and we'll leave that to the very last person. Let's say we didn't all die in a massive catastrophe and we were wiped out all at once. Let's say there is just one entity left at one point. I think even they would tell stories in order to just comprehend what is happening and what has happened and things like that. So I think as long as there is a consciousness, however it may look in the future, because obviously it could be transferred to technology, maybe that could happen, we don't know. And if it did, I think stories would still exist as a way of understanding things.
Yeah. We've got a really interesting question, which I think is interesting because of the conflict it might have with an author brand. And it's from Author Dream. An Author Dream. Can an author write fiction and nonfiction? So I'm interested in that question. It's a great question because in reality, it can be fine, I think. And it could also cause friction between the nonfiction and the fiction stories, depending on your nonfiction kind of story. So what's your take on that, Melanie?
I agree with that. But I do think that if you're known for something and you write about that mission in fiction or you write about it in nonfiction, that's great. I mean, I had a client who had written her memoir and she also wants to write a fiction story about the same topic. You know,
Nice.
as long as you know what you want to be known for, then I don't think it's conflicting.
Would you ever consider having, say, like a pen name in that situation, or are you comfortable that people can pull off both together?
So pen names are tricky. They're really tricky. And I once met a man who had written an entire nonfiction account in a pen name, but he couldn't show his face in his social media because he knew that it would give it away. I don't know whatever happened to that book, because I don't think you can really do some marketing around that.
Yeah.
But a pen name, yeah, you could create your very own persona with a pen name and have that be your fiction. And then nonfiction can be something completely different.
I think that's the way I would have thought, you know, if the pen name was there, it would have been for the fiction stories and not the nonfiction, because as you rightly said, you're representing that story about yourself. So you kind of need to pull that off as yourself. Excellent. Cool. Have we got time for one more? Yeah? Oh, happy. Okay. Yeah. Linda's got a question. Thank you, Linda. What is more important for getting a review? Is it the cover, a pitch, or a reasonably professional email? Is any one of those more effective than the other?
Well, I don't know that the cover is going to make a difference. It's really more about the pitch and the email. Now, reasonably professional. Do you just mean that you are writing it from a CRM or from your email subscription software? Is that what you mean by reasonably professional? But as long as you have a pitch asking, you know, I really would love for you to review this, and here's a fun thing that's in it for you. I think that is what's going to help the most.
I agree. And when we talked about kind of the author brand and building that kind of platform, as you mentioned earlier, if you've got that platform and then you're asking them to, in a reasonably professional email, to then leave you a review, I think they're much more likely to do it because they know who you are and the effort that you put in. And you go back to the trust factor that you mentioned earlier. So all that comes into play in that sense when it comes to the emails. I think that's a really good way to look at that. But reasonably professional is quite interesting. It's kind of like informal, but formal at the same time. Not quite sure about that one. Maybe go professional, or if it is very close author friends and personal people to you, then it could be informal almost. Really depends on that relationship that you've got with them. Okay, so last thing before we wrap this up, because we've just gone over the hour, nearly 5 minutes over the hour. Melanie, where can people find out more about yourself as an author and as a businesswoman, and where can they pick up this book, Mission Possible?
Chris, you're like my Vanna White. I love it. So Mission Possible is available on Amazon. And if you know a woman entrepreneur who is, kind of in the thick of it, send her a copy. She'll really appreciate it. I can be found everywhere that you are online. My company is VIP Book Marketing. And if you want to grab a free book marketing checklist, I always have that available. And you can grab that right on the website. It's right there. VIPbookmarketing.com.
Excellent. Melanie, I hope you've had a good time with this. We've loved your story, and there's a lot of advice in there people can take from this. And I think that they will look at improving their marketing, and especially the email. I think looking at the tips you gave for that was fantastic, and they could take that away. So thank you so much. Chris, before we wrap this up, have you got anything else?
Yeah, if anybody includes the term jiggly bits in emails to their followers, tag us and send us a picture. We'd love to see how you incorporated jiggly bits.
We want to see your jiggly bits on email. Not like that. The subject title, okay? Please, Brandon, don't do it. Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in this Friday, spending your time with us. It means the world to us, and we're working hard on bringing you many more guests this season. We're already booked shows into January 2024, which I can't quite believe. So yeah, we're very booked up. We've got some fantastic guests. Melanie's shared a wonderful story tonight, and if you could share that around for us, hit the like button and subscribe, all that great stuff. We'd love that. But thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Please stay safe, have a great long weekend if you're in America, and don't party too hard, but do at the same time. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.